Good evening, everybody. My name is Lisle. I am the founder and CEO with Next Practice Partners, working with the Pros Consulting and the Kimberly Horn team as a part of the Lisle Park District Master Planning process. I have my colleagues, Jason Alasaldi, Nicholas Suplis, Daniel Grove with Kimberly Horn, and Joe Cogswell with Kimberly Horn as well. And we are here to share with you the findings from what we've observed, what we've assessed, and what your community has shared with us throughout the process in a variety of ways. So I promise to keep it short. We will be done in the next 4 hours or so. I'm kidding. It'll be quick, about 30 to 45 minutes. Happy to answer questions, any other comments along the way, and then we'll outline the next steps. So as you've gone through the process, really, what we're looking at, and we shared this early on with you, any planning process of this sort really has 3 major steps. If you break this into about a 12-month period, your first phase is looking at where are you today. The second phase, which is what we are in right now, is talking about where do you want to go. And the last portion is how will we get there. So a lot of our assessment, demographics, trends, all the rest give us a sense of where is the park district at a point in time. We asked you all in our one-on-one interviews. We asked your staff, the stakeholders, the community, the user groups, and the community at large through the surveys where you want to go. We went through a process all day today with the staff as well, where one of the highlights was getting Illuminati. So that was fantastic. And nobody slept in the afternoon. We kept them awake, I promise. But that was looking at how the vision for the future shapes up based on the input we heard from all of you. And the last phase, which is the first quarter of next year, will help get us to a point in terms of implementation. How will we get there? So everything that's really started with the public input is now being built with the staff and your input, and we'll come back to you for the eventual plan. Quick demographics and trends. We ran a 10-minute walk assessment, and this is phenomenal. Nationally, it's in the 50% in terms of residents that have an access to a park within a 10-minute walk, 55% to be specific. In Lisle, that number is 86%. So significantly higher than some of the best numbers we've seen. And it just speaks to the number of parks you have, and so many of them are within the neighborhoods and in places where you've ensured the larger community has access to so many of them in a walkable manner. Okay. A few other things here as we look at population numbers. Don't be alarmed by the drop here. This is all of 63 people. So it really is only because of the chart numbers the way they are. It makes it look like a drop, but the larger trend is you go from under 30,000 to over 32, almost 32,000, and then some as well. Part of this also, as we look at race and ethnicity, shows that you continue to diversify significantly. The 2 largest areas from a race standpoint that are growing are the Asian population, which is in yellow, and the dark blue is those that are 2 or more races. The blue, which is still the majority and will continue being, is what the census calls white alone. That is reducing from 80% in 2010 to projected to be 60% in the next 15 years. At the same time, there is a marginal increase in the ethnicity as well, with the Hispanic and Latino population projected to grow from 7% in 2010 to about 11% in the next 15 years. More importantly, you continue to age, just like many other places do, but you can noticeably see the trend here. The blue at the bottom is under 18, orange is 18 to 34, 35 to 54, 55 to 74, and 75 plus. So the biggest drop that you see over time is those under the age of 55. The biggest increase is, and I refuse to call them senior, they don't behave like it, it's the active adult population over the age of 55. The largest group in the next 15 years is going to be the 55 to 74. If you aggregate them together, 38%, almost 2 out of 5 people in the park district will be over the age of 55. Only 15% are projected to be under the age of 18. Right? So there's definitely a big drop and a shift. What that means, time will tell, but we're already seeing programs like pickleball that are growing significantly. They started with a much older population and is now starting to get younger and younger in terms of its user groups as well. What we still need to continue ensuring, though, is if you look at just these two, That's the under 35. This is the under 35. This is the over 55, are almost identical. In this case, 38%. This is 48%. I wouldn't say identical, but this is about 40%. This is more like 30, well, 38% each. Sorry, what am I doing with my math here? They're an identical 38% on both sides, which means we've got to be still thinking of an intergenerational or a multi-generational experience, right? We've got families and young kids on one hand, and we've got older active adults on the other end as well that we will continue serving going forward. Income-wise, you know this. What is blue is per capita, every individual. Orange is every household. The state as a whole is at 68,000 as a household and 37,000 individually. Lisle is 56,000 individually and 97,000 as a household. Nationally is 50,35 and 64,000 as well. So you are significantly higher than individual and household income as well. As you can imagine, that does come with some expectation of higher quality. What's good enough in many places is not necessarily good enough right here in mind. Some trends, we looked at participation trends here as well. The red line here is the national average of 100. So what you can see here from a fitness market participation index is somehow Zumba is not an above average one, but every single thing, walking, swimming, aerobics, weightlifting, yoga, jogging, running, Pilates, every single one is anywhere from 12 to almost 30% higher than national average. Now, the important thing to remember here is it's not that they are doing all of these with the Park District only. It just means that the residents of Lisle like to participate in these activities, whether they do it in Lisle or anywhere outside as well. And the reason I share that is because they're not going to be doing saltwater fishing out here as well. Or as we look again with a lot of rock climbing, etc., people are probably going places to be doing some of that as well, right? So as we go through the list, outdoor activity and fitness, hiking, biking, backpacking, a whole bunch of different activities are significantly higher than average participation rates. What this generally tells us as a community is you have a slightly growing, a somewhat aging, diversifying audience that is above average in income levels, that likes fitness and wellness-based activities and likes outdoor recreation as well, right? So keeping that in mind as we think of future offerings as well, that's what we shared with the staff. We then are going to be sharing benchmarking as a part of the report. So these are the agencies we're comparing the Park District with: Glen Ellen, Gurney, Lombard, Park District of Oak Park, Naperville, Waterville, and Woodridge. And there are variations. One could say, Naperville is a significantly larger agency. Why are we looking at that? A number of people from here go to Naperville schools, use Naperville as offerings, and it's a gold medal agency. 5 of the 7 we're comparing you with are the best of the best in the country. So that's where we see Lisle going. That's who your yardstick is. That's where the staff wants to compare themselves with. That's why we're looking at all these agencies here. And we'll share these findings as we have all these reports developed too. But it's important to remember the context behind who we're comparing us with. Most importantly, community engagement. You've already got almost 1,000 participants across different mediums that have participated in this input process thus far. From the website, planlileparks.com, a community-wide meeting, which we had right here, a number of stakeholder, key leader, and staff interviews, over 250 online surveys, and almost 450 statistically valid surveys have combined to make up all these numbers. What I want to share with you is the most reliable data set and the most representative data set of your community, which is the statistically valid survey. The really cool thing, the target was 350 surveys to be statistically valid here. Your community showed up in big numbers. 445 people sent back completed responses. So we don't stop when we get to 350. The idea is to collect as many as we get. And so the result we're going to show you, all of this really just means that we have a degree of confidence that if this process is repeated over and over again, 95 out of 100 times, the results we're going to show you is in this margin of error or of about 4.5%. That's what makes the data valid and reliable as well because of this replicable process. So some of the key results here, we asked about visitation. Have you or members of your household, and this survey, by the way, was mailed, followed up with phone calls, and given a one-time link per household. So several thousand was sent. Usually 10 to 15% is a pretty good response rate. So maybe 2, 3, 4,000 of these were sent by an independent survey firm called ETC Institute. They collected the results, they sort and tabulate that, and we get this back. So neither the staff nor any of us get to handle the results that come back from the community till they are all sorted and finalized. So some key results here. Park visitation nationally is 76%. In Lisle, it's 86%. You think back to how many people have access to a 10-minute walk. There's a great correlation. You make them accessible, people are going to go to them. Even more importantly, as we look at this, only 2% rate your parks as poor. Only about 10% said they are fair. The majority of them, 88%, rate your parks as good or excellent. What we challenge the staff today, though, is, and I'm being a little nitpicky here, but looking for the future, a goal ought to be, can we reduce the number of people that say we are good and grow the ones that say we are excellent, right? Can we go from saying this is nice to saying, wow, right? That's the idea, right? Barriers. So we also asked, what prevents you from using these parks and facilities more often? 22%, about 1 in 5 said not aware of park and trail locations. Now, for us, that's the highest number. However, compared to national numbers, nationally, it's 33%. So here, 1 in 5 people say that. Nationally, 1 in 3 people say that. So your outreach, your communication is still significantly better compared to many other places around the country as well. These are the next 3 that are really, really interesting. Lack of features. What people want, you currently don't have, which is why they don't come, which is partly why they probably go to other parks, trails, or facilities in other places as well. The 4th one, we haven't seen that come up very often till recently, which is restrooms. 9%, right? If you've got young kids, you've raised young kids, you've been around young kids, you know your time in a park is driven by the kids' bathroom emergency, which you will only know 30 seconds before it's time to go. So as we've spent more time outside, our length of stay is driven often by access to certain amenities, one of which is the restroom. So right now, 1 in 10 people don't come to your park just because you don't have restroom access there, right? Now, we're not saying you got to put a bathroom in, or a permanent one in every single park. So this is something for you to think about is, are there parks that we think of that have heavy visitation that don't have bathroom or restroom access to think about as well for the future? This is phenomenal. Recreation participation numbers. If I just tell you without what's on the left, context, and you look at this and say, holy smokes, 52% of the community does not participate in a recreation program. Is that good or bad? I'd say this is the best of the best in the country. This is probably the top 1 or 2% in the country. Recreation program participation is about 32%. 1 in 3 people on average participate in recreation programs in the community. You're almost at 50%. It just speaks volumes again to how well you identify and serve the community needs, how well your staff treats people, and just access in general, whether it's affordability or the presence of what you have. Now, we're not going to say this is good enough and you stay where you are. We already talked about it, and it was challenging Scott and his staff and Dan and his table earlier to say, how do we go from 48 to 55? What can we do, right, to continue going higher in terms of participation? And that's where, along with quality, we also ask for barriers. Same thing here, only 1% said that your programs are poor. Only 10%, and I'm going to say probably the same 10% said, that said about parks and facilities, that they are fair. The majority, again, 89% here, 88% for parks, 89% for programs have rated your offerings as good or excellent. In both cases, what we're challenging the staff to do is shrink the ones that say good and grow the ones that say excellent. What's stopping people from coming? Too busy, not interested. That's life right now. That's hard for us to counter. That's not something staff or you all can control. What we can control are these next 3 or 4. Again, in this case, 1 in 4 said, I don't know what is offered. That is what is preventing people from participating. 23% said program times are not convenient. 16% said, I use programs in other agencies. 15% said program fees are too high. The reason why your times are not convenient is because you don't have space. You don't have enough indoor space to allow for multiple times and offerings. So we offer things when we can, which is not always convenient based on when people are available. So there is some assessment to be done here in terms of can we better align the timings for what we offer with the needs of the users, and staff can do that. But some of the other aspects with respect to limited space, that's going to be hard for you to control. The same thing here as well. Again, 33% nationally say, I don't know what is offered. In your case, it's 24%. So your barriers are much lower than the barriers we see nationwide. But for you, those are still the highest barriers we have to overcome. Some other things here. This is where we ask them from your existing dollars. This is not new money. This is existing. If you had $100 today, and that's the entire budget for the park district that you currently have, how would you want that to be allocated? By far, the highest 28 cents on every dollar they want you to spend in improve, expand, maintain, basically take care of what you've got. The next highest, almost 25 cents on the dollar, is new indoor facilities, walking track, fitness centers, gym, etc. $18, 18 cents on every dollar is acquisition and development of walking and biking trails. Now, we talked about this quite a bit. You provide a lot. I think where the gap is connectivity, right? Through all the other service providers, are people able to access in a connected way an entire trade network that allows them to go beyond just what you have as well? Improvements to sports fields or outdoor sports fields are both much lower, as is acquisition of new parkland and open space, right? Those did come up as very high priorities for where people would spend if they had $100. And then we asked them for their top 4 most important choices. What are the 4 things you would most want to fund? You as an individual taxpayer would be willing to fund. By far, the number one, 43% said develop, expand trails and connectivity of trails in the community. Second one is really fascinating. 2 years ago, barely heard of this. In the last 2 years, every single one, this is one of the top 3 or 4 priorities. Just like restrooms, it's tree and it's shade structures. As people are going outside, they want to ensure that the experience of recreating at a park, at a playground, is a pleasant one. When it gets too hot, there's no place to sit, there's not enough shade, the play equipment gets too hot, people can't use it. So that's something that we're seeing a lot more for people are willing to fund. Third highest, 30% said develop or expand new indoor rec facility. 27% improve existing parks in general. 25% improve existing bathrooms. 23% develop or expand smaller neighborhood parks, so on and so forth. 14%, it's an even tie actually. 14% each for leisure games and activities, pickleball courts, inclusive playgrounds. 13% for existing playgrounds, improving them. More than athletic fields or turf fields, people want Wi-Fi in the parks. They're willing to fund Wi-Fi in the parks. Right? Again, I go back to the experience. Restrooms, shade, Wi-Fi is not an end unto itself, but they help make the experience of going to the park to enjoy all these amenities that much more pleasant for everybody else, right? As people are able to work from anywhere or work outside as well, work remote. That's where a lot of these things could actually help bring people to the parks to be able to do some of these things as well. So then you ask really the money question, truly, literally, and philosophically, would you be willing to pay additional taxes? Almost 60% said they are somewhat or very supportive. 13% said they're not sure. 29% said they are not supportive. Now, one would think from this, a lot of people want to know what's going to be in there, right? Before I think further and specifically of what to do. This is pretty encouraging. I would say, again, this survey cannot be the answer. You've got to get some polling specialists. You have to know what's actually going to be in there before you go down the path. Because ideally, as we talked to the survey firm, they mentioned they'd like to see this to probably be closer to 2/3, right? So more like 65%. I would say they are somewhat or very supportive as well, and perhaps have about 25% or lesser that are not supportive, right? Your 80-20 is always going to be there, no matter what community we're in. There's going to be 20% of the population that's always going to say no. Doesn't matter what you offer, no new taxes. The rest of it is a point in time, right? So right now, as we ask them, that's what they said. The really encouraging thing are these next two slides. So coming out of the pandemic, as we talked to them and we asked them, what is the perception of value of what the park district provides you? Has the perception or has the value in your mind stayed the same or has changed? If you look at this, about 61% have said that the value has somewhat or significantly increased. 6% have said it's somewhat or significantly decreased. Literally 10 times as many people value you more now than they did just 2 years ago, right? That is unheard of. Like, those are not the kind of levels of support we've ever seen before. And similarly, you have almost about 84% or 74%, 84% in this case as well, talk about either maintain or increase funding. 29% say increase funding, 4% said reduce funding. 6 times as many people want to increase the park district's funding as opposed to those that want to reduce. So significantly higher support, people willing to say increase the funding. Now the question is, do they realize increase funding means they paying more, right? And that's where one can point to this and say it's not as high here in terms of me paying more taxes as it is for increasing funding in general. But the overarching support as a whole is, yes, we value it more. Yes, we'd like the funding to stay the same or increase as well. So statistically valid response-wise, these are very, very encouraging numbers. You have higher than average visitation. You have higher than average participation. People pay for things they value, and they value things that they use. If people don't use things, they don't value them, right? So in your case, you have that going for you. I think the question is going to be, what is financially feasible for the park district, and what does that look like? Right? So online survey, 257 of them. The reason why this survey is not as reliable is simply how the survey data can get skewed. In your statistically valid survey, look at the gender breakdown, almost even split. In the online survey, shame on all the guys. What were you doing? Right? But we have literally 3 times as many females respond to the online to the males. Similarly, from an age segment and a race and ethnicity standpoint too, it's significantly more skewed. So it's hard, and there is no way of knowing who from here even lives in your district, right? Because that link can go to anybody. So it's important to have that, and we contrast it because there might be some common themes, and there are, but it's important for you all to know that this data is truly representative of your constituents and the community more than any other data set that we have. So here I'm going to turn it over to Jason and then to Kimberly Horn to talk about the assessments we've done. And then we'll end with the last 2 slides on the priority investment ratings that came out of the statistically valid survey.
Thank you, sir. So I had the pleasure of working on the program assessment with Lisle Park District staff. We have some initial findings on this, just a couple of things that we want to touch base with you, make sure you're aware. So core program areas was the first thing. We have to create or attribute each program within Lisle Park District recreation mix to a core program area. The core program areas that staff came up with were aquatics, arts and enrichment, athletics, camps, early childhood, fitness, school age, seniors, special events, and teens. So every program, recreation program that is run by the Park District falls within one of these 10 core program areas. We distributed programs based on program area life cycle. So we state programs will fall in one of 6 life cycles. We have introduction stage, which are your new programs. We have takeoff stage, which are new programs that are having some rapid growth. Think pickleball a couple years ago. Growth programs, which are newer programs that are growing, but maybe not quite as rapidly as some of those takeoff programs. Mature programs are the backbone of your recreation programming mix. Those are those programs that are steady and true. We've been running forever. We know that there's going to be a good result out of those. Saturation is going to be when we run into programs that we are now at a point where those programs are no longer growing. Saturation can happen for a couple reasons. It could be too much competition within your area, too many people providing what it is that we're offering, or in some cases, it could be a matter of fact that we have run out of space to grow the program. And then last but not least is that decline option, which is going to be those programs that are now starting to show a dip in participation. And we have to start asking ourselves some hard questions as to whether or not this is a program that needs to continue, or if it's something that can be revamped, and we can look at ways to kind of breathe new life into the program. Here at Lisle, we have recommended distribution that we say 50 to 60% of those introduction stages, 40% in the mature stage, 0 to 10% of recommended distribution. Kind of right in line in that intro stage right now, they're at 51%. 32% in their mature programming. We would like to see that bumped up a little bit, and we do see an opportunity here. The decline is at 14%, which is a little bit higher than what we would like to see. But I will state for them, they were very honest in their assessment of their program. So they are aware of the programs that are declining, and they are looking at those and trying to find ways to get, whether those need to be revamped to get out of decline stage, go back in that mature stage where they're more steady, or they're programs that need to go away, and we get to bring in some new introduction programs to fit that first one up a little bit as well. The other thing that came to mind as we were looking at this was the program area pricing strategies. I will say this for Lisle, you guys are very consistent. So we have about 10 pricing strategies that we have forth here for ways to price recreational programs. They are using 4 of them, and they use all 4 of them in every core program area. So one of our recommendations is going to be looking at these other pricing strategies that exist and try to find a way to create some more dynamic pricing in some of these program options. We can create programming based or pricing based on age segmentation. One that we like to bring up is this idea of prime time versus non-prime time rates, where if we have certain programs that run that we know are more popular, why aren't we looking at what reasons why the pricing for those programs couldn't be a little bit more than they are for the ones that are less popular? If I'm going to buy tickets to a basketball game, I'm going to pay more for Lakers tickets than I'm going to pay for Pacers tickets, right?
Ouch.
I'm an Indiana guy, now I can say it. So those are just kind of the high-end recommendations that we found from the program assessment at this point. So now we'll hand this off.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks again. My name is Daniel Grove with Kimley Horn, landscape architecture planning, just down the street in Warrenville, but we work around the region. We've got offices around the country. And I think one of the things that, one of our roles in this is to look at your parks and kind of help you understand with a different set of eyes, a fresh set of eyes, what's working, what's not, especially because we do this for other communities and have a chance to kind of compare you. And, building on what Lisle said, there's a lot of things that are going really well, and you should be proud of your park district. You see the participation numbers, you see, the satisfaction numbers, and we see that reflected in the condition of the parks. So I'm not telling you a lot that you don't already know here, but you have a really great diverse set of parks, whether it's community park where you've got amazing passive spaces and active fields. That's really that hub and heart of your community in terms of parks. Some of your newer parks like Lisle, these small neighborhood parks that make it easy for people to walk. And to us, we're seeing offerings that you usually don't get in those kind of parks, whether it is just a single tennis court like you have at Connolly. You know, those are usually reserved for clusters and larger parks. That's something that we can talk about as we think about maintenance and taking care of those courts as we move on, and should some of them, more of them be turned into pickleball courts or retired. But it is something that's unique that you have those amenities in these neighborhoods, accessible and walkable. Some of your great kind of more naturalized spaces like the wetland at Oak Ridge overlook, you know, large wooded areas like Tanglewood, and then some of the historic components that you have built in, like the museums at Lisle Station. So great diversity, a large number of parks, you know, and spread out throughout the community. So those are all great things that you have going for you. Some of our key takeaways that we saw, and our reactions as we went and to every single park, walked it multiple times, evaluated them. One is excellent maintenance. We think you're doing a lot with a little. You know, the lawns are really well taken care of. Typically, we see, you know, just in terms of weeds or bare patches. I mean, just everything was looking great. Your paths, other things along those lines. You know, where you have a lot of it to maintain, it's being kept up to a good standard. But we think that maybe there's some opportunities. We see all these lawn areas, but some of them are down in lower detention, you know, areas that can, you know, used as detention in you know, high rain events. You know, why are those mown turf? You know, are we getting the use out of that? Is that something that people are actually activating? Or can we be naturalizing some of those spaces, which would, you know, do a lot of things in terms of sustainability, water infiltration, and reduction in you know, mowing and maintenance and gas powered equipment. So that's something that we think is worth looking at as you move forward. Similarly with trails, you've got some really great trails out there. You've got some of the asphalt ones are starting to age, crumble at the edges, heave with roots. We know from talking to staff, there's you know, a preference that if you know, you have the magic wand, you could wave it, turn more paths into concrete to get that durability. You know, and especially as you think about accessibility and aging population, you're going to have fewer issues with concrete over asphalt. You're going to have longevity with those. So something else that we're calling attention to and thinking about. Playgrounds, you know, your universal accessible playground, outstanding, really a highlight of the system. Overall, your equipment is, again, really well maintained. You know, we typically see in some of these districts, you know, a lot more kind of rusty bolts and things here and there, you know, flaking paint. It's kept up really well. Even, you know, we can look at it and we have a sense of the age of it, but it's kept up really well. So, you know, we can tell staff's doing a lot. Where we're seeing some issues is more kind of around the edges, you know, the mulch needing to be refreshed and brought up. We're seeing weeds, we're seeing, you know, kind of where the curb is being, more of the curb's exposed as the mulch gets settled or kicked out. Not having that, you know, ADA ramp or accessible ramp, sometimes stairs, some of the curb edges and walls starting to show their age. So there's some places there for improvement. And we think, you know, in that life cycle of playgrounds, you know, maybe it's a consideration of adding more diversity. So a lot of your playgrounds, you know, there's diversity in colors and some of the equipment, but there's nothing that really makes it stand out, you know, from one park to another, you know, with the exception of your kind of gemstone of a playground. So something to consider. I mean, I remember when my kids were really young and just really trying to go to every playground in my community, you know, just getting that sense of like, oh, this one has this going for it, this other one, you know, you get bored if you're just, as a parent, sitting there with your kid in the same playground every day. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here over time, obviously, as you retire and move on to, you know, some playgrounds and then upgrade them. Your courts, again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of courts out there, in a lot of parks, so they're spread out. That's a great thing for accessibility to, you know, use, but it's also maintenance heavy. Maybe it affects the efficiency of the maintenance. You've got some that are in great shape. All of them have a nice, clean, fresh coat of paint. You know, a lot of the fences were in good shape. Nets were in good shape, but some of them are showing their age with cracks and some issues there. So, that's one that as we get into the next level of analysis and level of service, are you overserved with courts? And if so, then we'll start looking to see where maybe we can, where are the places we would want to reduce? Not saying that you are overserved, we're going to take a look at that, but these are things that we're flagging to think about as we move forward in the future. And then finally, thinking about signage, again, you've got all these great parks, they're tucked behind homes, they're part of the neighborhood, they create these great trail connections. But sometimes their sign is almost back behind the home. And so I'm sure these neighborhoods want to keep these as well-kept secrets. But in terms of being visible, if you as we sent out staff and we were out, going to evaluate these, sometimes we're like, wait, is this where we go? Is this the path that we take to get back and look at this park? We don't want to be traipsing through somebody's backyard. So, just even simple wayfinding, some of these parks, I think Sun Valley has 5 exits from it. If you're in there, one of them into a forest preserve. But if I'm new to the neighborhood, I have no idea, like, wait, which street am I going to go out to? Where are these connections? Which one can I take to get onto a larger path? So we think some signage, some identity, some wayfinding might be something that you want to look at in the future. So those are some of our key takeaways. We've done full evaluations of all the parks that will be in the final report. But overall, a system to be proud of, but always, as with the other metrics that you saw, we want to push you how to get to the next level. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Lisle.
Thank you. And just about 80 slides to go. Has to. Priority investment ratings, right? This is really the culmination of everything you saw in the survey, where we looked at, for all the facility amenity types, a series of 3 questions. For every amenity they were asked, is this something you have a need for, yes or no? If you said, yes, I have a need, then the question was, to what extent is your need being met? 100, 75, 50, 25%, or 0. So anybody that says, yes, I have a need, and my need is met at 50% or less, that is an unmet need. For the same thing, they were then asked, rank these as the first, second, third, or fourth most important amenity or facility type is for park type as well. So the combination of people that said this is important, I have a need, and my need is unmet, that becomes your highest priority. Right? So as a perfect example, you have a huge unmet need for disc golf in Lisle. It's important to 4 respondents, right? So it's important to less than 1% of your population. On the other end, you may have sports fields that were much higher in importance, but much lower in unmet need, right? So it's really looking at balancing what are things people have said are important and unmet needs. That's what you're going to see here. So the first one, this is a facility amenity. The maximum possible score is 100 for importance, 100 for unmet needs. So the max possible is 200, out of which indoor pool aquatic center is 162. Trails, multi-use paved trails, 158. Indoor walking, jogging track, 145. Multi-use unpaved trails, 104. Those are the only 4 that have a high priority. 3 of the 4 have to do with basically walking or jogging. Right? The simplest of, but the most accessible of all activities to every single age. Just below that, though, the next 4 or 5 are close enough. Small neighborhood parks, 97. Indoor rec facility, 94. Outdoor adventure park, 92. And outdoor amphitheater, 89. Now, some of these, we wondered as we talked about it, not every single thing is here for the exact same reason. It's hard to think that people may have an unmet need for an outdoor amphitheater when you have one. The question is, do they know that you have one, right? And we mentioned that as barriers to participation, 20% plus don't know what you have. 22 to 24% for parks or programs. So for some of these, we think they are high priorities, or people think they're a high unmet need because they don't know that you already have them, right? So it's going to be a combination of education and awareness for some of them. On the other hand, indoor pool, you don't have it. So that is clearly an unmet need, and it's not something that's new, you know it, right? So for all of these, it's going to have to require us to look at each of them and understand why might someone have said this is an unmet need, or what drove this to be as high as it is. Like I said here, for example, disc golf is high in the low priority only because it is 100% an unmet need. Otherwise, it would have been at the lowest if we simply look at importance. So these are some of the things we want to be thinking of as it looks at facility amenities. Similarly, programs. A perfect 200 out of 200, adult fitness and wellness. The fourth highest, senior fitness and wellness. 2 of the top 4 are driven entirely by your demographics, right? We spoke about how your population is aging. Fitness and wellness, if you saw the participation trends, except for Zumba, everything else is higher than national average. So it's a combination of those 2 that clearly is driving that. Now, farmers market is another one we looked at. It's such a high priority, but you have one here. You don't do it, but it happens. Again, do people know that it happens? And if it does, do they enjoy the experience and think it's a high quality experience, right? So that's another aspect here where more special events and cultural enrichment program and events, 3 of the top 5 are essentially things that give people a chance to feel like they belong, give people a chance to feel like they're part of a community. And the other 2 are fitness and wellness in every aspect, right? Physical, mental, social, emotional, all of that. So really, as a theme, if you think of it, those are the areas that are the highest priority investments that the community thinks of. And then as you go below, water fitness and lap swimming, pickleball lessons and leagues, golf programs, senior education programs, senior trips, outdoor adventure, environmental, nature camps, that's another one. These 2 as well are much higher than we've usually seen them before, just because there is more and more focus for nature and environmental education, right? More kids have been outdoors. There is a greater appreciation for that as well. We see that much more because not every child is playing sports anymore after a certain point as well. So what are some of the other things as you think of art, culture, nature, STEAM, right? Science, technology, engineering, math, all of that. Every one of those elements are also just as important for a more rounded offering as a community, right? Then only can you truly be an inclusive agency, right? Where it's not just one kind of use that matters, it's all kinds of uses, interests, abilities that are factored into play as well. So those are some of the things we looked at as a part of this. We're gonna, I'm gonna pause here, and if we can, turn over any questions or discussion, we can stop the recording at this point, and we'll have this presentation also on the website afterwards as well.